Right, good morning everybody. My name's Chrissy Brewer and I'm the village agent, one of the village agents in Taunton. And this morning I'm going to be talking to Andrew and Jane from Monkton Elm Garden Centre, and they are going to be discussing everything we should be doing in our gardens for the spring. And Andrew's also going to talk a bit about Monkton Elm Garden Centre and also the challenges that they've been facing as a garden centre over this last year, because as all the shops, hospitalities, and as you're aware, have been having a really difficult time. So Andrew is going to tell us about that as well. So I'm going to be quiet and hand straight over to Andrew and Jane. After this, we are going to got some questions. I've already got some questions to ask from my colleagues. And if you would like to put questions in the comments, then please do. Right, over to you.
Right, well, good morning, everyone. This is a bit new for us, so please forgive us if we have any teething problems. I'm Andrew Pitman, General Manager of Monkton Elm Garden Centre. I've been here over 30 years for my sins. And as you can imagine, during this pandemic, it's been a very different year for us and a difficult year. We're still here, which is very good, and we're ready for spring, and the weather almost seems to be following the right pattern. So that's good news for us. We are absolutely rammed full of stock, ready for the lockdown to ease. Although we are open at the moment, we aren't having a huge amount of people in because people are staying at home, so they're shopping online with us. But we do have a fairly reasonable footfall of sort of spring gardeners coming through the door. And we've basically got everything here, a one-stop shop for them. Everything to do with gardening, and that's really why garden centres have been able to stay open, is because of the focus on the gardening side, the benefits of gardening, and also the fact that we've got a pet centre. So that's why we're allowed to open. And we're very keen not to promote other areas of the garden centre during this pandemic. Fingers crossed, as soon as we come out of lockdown, it should be all systems go. And Jane and her team, Jane Earthy is the seasonal plant manager, and she also does all the grow your own, so she can give you all the tips on what you should be doing to have a fantastic summer display, and also lots to eat during the summer of healthy things. So do you want to say a few words, Jane?
Yes. Hi, everybody. I'm Jane Earthy. I've been at Monkton Elm for 18 years now. It is my birthday today, by the way, Andrew.
Oh, happy birthday.
I know you haven't forgotten, really. Yeah, so I've been here 18 years, and I'm
so
in
you
charge.
must have started when you were at school, Jane.
Yeah, thanks for that. Yeah, primary school. Yes, I'm in charge of the seasonal plant house, which is everything bedding and everything that only really lasts one season, 1 year, and then we start again the next year. And also I do all the vegetables. We do a lot of little growing vegetables for everybody, so you don't need to buy lots of seeds. If you don't need lots, you can just buy one of things, or a little packet of 8 plants or whatever. They're starting soon. And also soft fruit I'm involved in now as well, which is great. So we've got lots of that coming in April as well, which we've just ordered. So it's all looking good out there. It's all ready for you. So when you're able to, it'll be absolutely perfect when lockdown finishes for you to start grow your own, basically.
So basically, if we sort of run around the store at the moment, obviously we can't do that with a camera, so you just have to visualize it. But as you come in the main door of the garden centre, it's everything to do with grow your own and gardening. So we have all the seeds, and we've got the vegetable seeds, and we've got the flower seeds. Then we've got the seed potatoes. We have a huge following of what we call real gardeners that visit Monkton Elm, and now is the time to be buying your seed potatoes. And we've probably got about 30 varieties in stock, Jane?
At least, plus bagged ones as well. So
yeah.
we sell them loose, so you could have like 2 or 3 of each one if you fancied. You don't have to buy a whole bag of each variety, which a lot of our customers really appreciate, because it's actually quite hard to find them loose these days. So you can just pick and choose the varieties you really want to try, you know, you can try something different every year if you wanted to. And we've also got things like loose beans and peas and onion sets and shallots as well. Again, we've got garlic as well, that's in bags. So we've got either the bagged option or you can buy it loose. So I think we've got something for everybody. Yeah, and it's quite exciting, I think. I love it.
Yeah, it's a fantastic time of year, and you know, we are absolutely stacked full of things. And then if you go to the right of the grow your own, we've got a huge houseplant area, and it's very, very trendy at the moment. If you look in any of the magazines, to have plants again into the house, very good for sort of visual and sort of like making the well-being factor. So we've got lots of houseplants there, and Sue, our houseplant lady, is very keen to welcome you and give you advice, because again, people say, well, where should I put this plant? And it's really vital to work out where that plant is going to be happy in your house. And you know, it's not going to be happy sat on the top of a hot radiator. You might think it's going to look good there, but it won't look good for very long there. Bear in mind with houseplants, you know, it's not their natural environment being in a house. So it is vital that we try to look after them as best we can and find the spot that actually is beneficial for them, whether it's a nice shady spot or whether it's a plant that likes some bright light out of drafts. So it's always worth asking some advice, and somebody will be able to help you. So don't just look at them and think, oh, that's the one that's going to look great. It's the one that's going to succeed for the longest. So that's our houseplant area, and we'll double back, because although the shop is very appealing, Jane and I are very plant orientated. So we go back through the grow your own area, and then we go into Jane's kingdom, shall we call it? And then you're in what we call the bedding house, seasonal plant house. And Jane will highlight a few things that we've got in there at the moment that look absolutely fabulous. It's almost like a sweet shop, but there's no calories involved.
No, it's surprising actually that I like it in there. I'm very calorie driven, unfortunately. Yeah, so at the moment in there we have got some fantastic primroses, and they're on special offer at the minute. They're $1.29 each, or you can buy 10 for just $7.99. And we've just had new delivery in, and they're lovely and fresh and looking good. So that's something that will really brighten up just pots at this time of year, and also hanging baskets. They look lovely in hanging baskets. They're really appealing. They come in a huge range of colours. So they just kind of tide you over until you're ready to put your summer stuff in. So those and things like violas and pansies are looking good at the minute. I've got a fantastic offer on a 24 pack. They're just $6.99 for 24 plants. And there's a huge range of colours on those as well. And they really see you through. And at this time of year, it gets, you know, you just want something. The days are getting longer. Days are brighter as well. We've had some lovely weather recently, and you just feel like you want something colourful. The bulbs are starting, and something to sort of supplement all of that. And they can just give your patio or the front of your house a real lift at this time of year, and just make you feel better. And I think that's what we all need, regardless of the situation. I think we all need that lift at this time of year. So yeah, they look good. I've just had some cernetti in. Not everybody knows cernetti, but it's a lovely little, really brightly coloured, sort of on the pinks and blues spectrum, a really pretty daisy plant, which will carry you right through to the summer months. So they're a good plant at the moment. And
sorry, Jane, are they for pots or for the borders?
Either. They'll go down to about 0.
Right.
So they're pretty cold hardy. So yeah, really good in pots, really bright colour. So so yeah, really good plant those.
Real statement piece, aren't
yeah,
they?
Absolutely.
Yeah. I love daisies.
And I put them in the middle of the pot, and then I put the primroses and some violas around them, so they look really vibrant. And they usually last to about the end of May, don't they?
Yeah, and then
they go
with cernetti, the good thing about those is you can cut them back by about half, and they will flush up again for the early summer. They won't take you right through, but yeah.
How do you spell that? I'm going to write this down.
Yeah, so they're spelled S for sugar,
Yeah.
E-N for no one, E-double-T for Tommy, I. Cernetti.
Lovely. I'll come and look. Thank
Yeah,
you.
they're really lovely, actually.
You didn't know it was a spelling test, did you? I had double N in there, so.
I said double. Oh no, it's
you
one N. No.
Is
One
it double N?
One N, two T's. No,
All right.
it isn't. It's one N, two T's, definitely.
Oh dear.
Thank you.
We go a bit further down the bedding house, and then we have all the lovely, very young plants. We call them kinder plants, and that's because they're the company that supplies us is called Kindergarten Plants. So they're baby plants ready to grow on. Now it's really sort of important that people realise that they can't put those outside. They do need frost protection. So if you haven't got a heated greenhouse, you have to put them on a windowsill or something like that to get them started. But it's a really sort of encouraging way to sort of get into summer if you've got the right facilities, and you can save money by growing them on. And some people plant them nice and early, take their own cuttings, or they simply want to actually have a fantastic early display because they are probably, what do you think, about 5 weeks ahead of everything else?
Yeah, so they're really, you can plant those into baskets early, so you can have a really full hanging basket by the time May comes. As Andrew says, you can also take cuttings from them. There's a seedling range, there's a plug range, massive variety. There's hundreds in there in total. So they are a really good way of getting ahead of the game, basically. So yeah, we're a really big stockist of Kinder. We stock the entire range, so really interesting. I think a lot of people don't realise we do them, but it's really they're really good company. The plants are incredibly robust, so we've only just got those in. We've gone a bit later on those, but really popular range for us. And it's just nice to see the summer things starting, actually.
It's exciting.
It's like, off we go again. My little Kinder babies have turned up.
Unfortunately, we were left with a lot of those during lockdown, and I worked all the way through lockdown, and I watered them every single day. So I was actually sick of the sight of them. By the time we opened, they weren't good enough to sell either, so it was a bit of a sort of a thankless task. But we did actually give them to staff, and I must admit, I had a fantastic display of them.
He wasn't that sick of them that you didn't take
No.
Oh dear.
Yeah, so yeah, and it's good that we try the things actually, because if we're selling them, I think it's really important that we know what they look like when they're mature, and we can give advice, because I think a lot of people again don't realise that the plant staff here are pretty much all trained in horticulture. We've got various different what's it called? I can't think of the word.
Specialists.
Yeah, well, and we've all got different areas that we've trained in, so we can pretty much answer any query.
We like a challenge.
Yeah, I love a challenge, especially with pests and diseases. That's my thing. I love
Okay.
good old detective story when people bring things in and we can solve it for them.
It's a classic. People say, "Can you identify a plant?" So you say, "Oh, have you brought it with you or a bit?" No, I can describe it to you. It's a foot tall and it's got green leaves. You think it flowers. I'm not quite sure when. And then they look at you and say, "You don't know, do you?"
I mean, the age of the smartphone has really helped us out on that now, though.
Yeah.
It's just so easy for people to bring a picture in of everything.
Yeah.
We encourage that. We really like to help people. Yeah.
I can't remember, somebody gave us a challenge last year, and it was one of those things that after the customer went away, shouldn't admit it, was, what a waste of time that was, half an hour, and we still didn't know what it was, and they didn't want to buy it anyway.
Oh.
And it was about 3 or 4 days later, and I'm texting Jane late at night saying, "I think it might be."
Yeah, and it was.
It was now.
Text that
What was it? What was it?
By then, you don't know where the customer is.
Wasn't it?
Yeah, it might have been actually. Yeah. So we do like a challenge.
Yes, we do.
So, and usually between the team we can identify things, because, like Jane says, we've all got specialisms. So I'm pretty good on the sort of the hardy plant side. If I don't know it, I do know that it's probably a herbaceous perennial. So that's down a little bit. And Jane's hot on herbaceous, so we can usually have a go.
Yeah, we're not.
So back to our little visual tour.
Yeah.
Then because we're talking about gardening, we only look through the doors of the next building, and the next building is full of garden furniture. And that is probably a really critical bit, because after all the sort of your hard work, you actually want to enjoy your garden. You want to either sit there and dine and drink, or you want to have a barbecue, or you just simply want to sit and relax. So we've got everything in that building, which makes it absolutely fantastic, and lots of garden furniture. And it's very popular at the moment. And I think because of lockdown, people are spending a lot of time at home and using the garden more and more. We are noticing that the garden furniture sales are much sort of higher than they would normally be. So I think people are thinking that they are going to spend more time at home, so hence they're really investing in it. So you're only allowed to look through that door. So out you come now. You've got to go out on the gardening trail. You go out through the bottom doors, and then straight ahead of you, you see all the fruit trees. And again, we have a large selection of fruit trees and fruit bushes. And again, there's a lot of expert advice to do with pollination on the fruit trees and what root stocks, and we won't go into any of that now. But basically, again, if you're thinking of having a fruit tree in the garden, work out what fruit you like and what space you have. So whether you want to train it against the fence, or you want it to provide you with a little bit of a focal point or some shade in the middle of the garden, or even growing it in pots. So then we're going to turn right, and then it's over to you, Jane, and you're the rose queen now.
Oh. Dan has actually taken over the roses. Dan is an expert in all things roses, so he'll be able to give you a hand if you come in about those. We stock a wide range of roses. We're a main stockist for David Austin roses, which is highly regarded obviously in the rose world, but we do other varieties as well, plenty of other sorts beside those. We do celebration roses. Have we got those out there at the moment?
Yeah, we've got celebration at the moment.
So if you've got some sort of celebration coming up, you'd like to gift somebody, say for a wedding, at the moment, anniversaries, babies being born, anything like that, there's a rose pretty much to cover any occasion, pretty much. So there's something there. We do patio roses, climbing roses, all sorts of standard roses. There's something for everybody in pretty much any colour out there as well. So they're looking good at the moment.
Then we come out of the roses, and then we go into the tree area. I think everybody knows what a tree is. There's a good selection of trees, and I would advise anyone with a new garden, the first thing that you do is to actually plant from the top down. So work out what space you have, and if you've got space for 1 or 2 trees, do a little bit of research to make sure you get as much interest as possible in that space, and then do that first, and then you actually, after you've planted your tree, then you come down to your climbers. So it's always from the top down. So then we move into the shrub area, which is obviously a huge area for us. And shrubs is are massive lines for us. And they sell right the way, sorry about that, very unprofessional. They sell very well throughout the year. But our stock varies throughout the year. So I would advise anyone that's stocking a garden, come in on a regular basis, not just to us, to any garden centre, and you will find that the shrub area will change throughout the year. And if you buy something that looks good every time you visit, you will find you will get a good continuity through the season. A lot of people come in and they fill the trolley in one go, and then the garden looks great for a month, 6 weeks every year. Whereas if you do it throughout the year, and believe it or not, even in the dullest winter days, there are things still flowering. One of my favourites is the winter cherry, which is a small tree that flowers from November through to March on its bare stem. So that looks great. One of our best sellers in the winter is the Christmas box, the sarcococca, because of its very highly scented flowers. So really worthwhile to spend a little bit of time every time you come in, walk through there and just see what catches your eye. If we do perhaps 3 things that are looking good out there at the moment that you would recommend. Do you want to do it first, or should I do it, Jane?
Oh, no, you go first.
Right. Well, I'll go with a forsythia. We've got forsythias looking great at the moment. Everybody knows what forsythias are. Just telling me, look at the camera, do this. We've got the forsythias. They look great. Everybody knows they're a nice splash of yellow flowers at this time of year. Then you've got the viburnum tinus, a really tough evergreen plant with its lovely creamy white flowers at the moment, which are followed by blue-black berries. I always think with viburnum tinus, if I personally recommend a viburnum tinus to you, I do think you're a no-hoper. I think if you can't grow a viburnum tinus, it's probably time to give up. But on the flip side of that, it is a very easy evergreen plant that flowers very early spring and gives you many weeks of flower, and it's evergreen, ideal for sort of like the back of the border, even good for as a hedging plant. So that's 2 of mine. So I've got to think of a 3rd one. It's a fantastic little shrub, which is a sort of, we classify it as a climbing plant, but it's not really a climbing plant, it's more of a scrambling plant, and that's a coronilla. And it's got little tiny, very, very pale yellow flowers at this time of year, and they're pea-like, and they are absolutely charming, and that will flower guaranteed for about 7 months of the year. And that is a real winning plant. I personally like it up a small little obelisk or something just to keep it tidy. But if you tie it into a fence, it will go up to about sort of 4 to 5 feet.
It looks quite frail, really, doesn't it?
It does,
but it's actually quite robust.
Oh, it's amazing.
Yeah, but it looks, it's stronger than it looks, really.
If you invite us back, we will have some props next time.
Yeah, I know.
I will, that'd be great. We'll do this in this summer, midsummer.
Stuck in a sunless room at the moment. I would definitely recommend a Christmas rose or a helleborus, any of the hellebore family at the moment. They're looking fantastic. I've got some lovely ones in my garden. Absolute peak at the moment. And so, yeah, that's definitely a winner for me. Very popular here. We've got a lot of different varieties that are really looking good, and there's a lot of new ones coming on the market. They're really big in breeding hellebores at the moment. Everything seems to go through its kind of thing where somebody grabs onto them and everybody's breeding them. There's obviously the specialist breeders, but our main companies we work for, they're actually bringing a lot of new ones onto the market. We've had some fantastic ones this year, really strong growing plants full of, I mean, hundreds of buds some of them have had, that were, you know, really robust plants, strong growing plants that I think will, you know, really do well over the years. They'll really prove themselves. So there's plenty out there to choose from.
And they're British grown.
And they're British grown, yeah, we do try.
Oh, right.
Hellebores definitely for me, they're my favourite. Yeah.
That's only one, Jen.
Yeah, looking good in my garden at the moment, actually, and I think it's a great, it's not actually flowering, but it doesn't matter. It's a beautiful begonia, and it's a very old-fashioned plant, really, but begonia has these lovely big, it's also known as elephant ears. It has really big leathery leaves. It's an evergreen. It's a herbaceous plant. They do have flowers on, coming on now, sort of pinks and whites. But the leaves of the one I've got in particular turn a beautiful burgundy colour this time of year.
Wow.
Yeah, they're really lovely plants, actually, and they're well worth having in the garden. Again, very robust, easy to keep splitting and keeping them looking good over the years. And then you have the bonus of the flowers. But I mean, I'm all for plants that have more than one season of interest, although I do love iris, I must admit. But yeah. You know, you get so many seasons of interest of those. So yeah, that's definitely a recommendation for me, begonia. And euphorbias are starting to look good as well. Actually, yeah, euphorbias are looking good. They're really just coming into play now. Again, the ones I've got in particular evergreen in the garden, and they're just coming up with those beautiful sort of really bright chartreuse green flowers at the moment. So that's definitely a plus for me. So yeah, good one.
I'd like to see your gardens. They're looking amazing.
I had last week off, so I was very lucky with the weather. So I spent last week actually getting it. I've got ahead of myself for a change, which is very unusual for me.
Yeah.
But yes, I really enjoyed that. So it's all just poking through again now, all the little plants. So it's just like, here we go again.
When I had my first house, as you can imagine, when you work with plants all the time, everybody does expect you to have a fantastic garden. And this lady used to stop me most mornings and tell me how disappointing my garden was. She said, I'm so disappointed every time I walk past your garden. I was expecting great things.
Well, that's the front garden. I'm sure the back garden was extraordinary.
No, the garden I've got now is very pretty, but you know, sometimes when you do it all day, the last thing you want to do is do it when you get home. But
yeah.
Oh, gardening. No, I do love that.
Now, are you ready for some questions?
Yes.
Yeah, we are.
Okay. I've got some written down, and then we have had quite a few comments in, so I'll do the written down ones first. And these are from Jane, who's one of my colleagues, and she says, what should be being done now in the greenhouse and on the lawns?
Well, I'll start with the greenhouse, shall I? I would give it a good wash to start with. Make sure you've given it a good wash for the season. It's amazing, even how much the glass gets dirty, even if you think it's fairly clean. Let as much light in as possible for the growing season ahead. So yeah, give it a good wash and a clean out. Give it a sweep out if you can. My greenhouse is actually carpeted, which I know sounds a bit mad. I've got two smallish greenhouses. One is carpeted, but that's only because it was old chuck out carpet. I didn't have the inter carpet in my greenhouse. But anyway, so yeah, I'll give it a good old sweep out, good old clean out, and get anything sort of gunky off the windows or whatever. So have a really good clean this time of year, and make sure you've got everything prepared, ready for the season. Get plenty of compost ready, that sort of thing. Get it all in fresh if you can. And things that you can actually be sowing now would be your salad crops can all be started off indoors in modules. I think modules is a great way of not sowing too many at one time, just sowing what you need. So that's a really good idea. Tomatoes, aubergines, things like that can all be sown now. Chilies.
Is this a seed? All the seeds?
All the seeds, this is, yeah.
Right.
All your salady things are quite actually hardy seeds. So spring onions, beetroot are really good at this time of year, and salad leaves and lettuce you can get started off, as well as cabbagey things, all the brassica family. You can start those off indoors. The tender things like the chilies and tomatoes, I'd give a bit of bottom heat. So if you can't do that in your greenhouse, because it's actually quite unusual these days for people to have heat in their greenhouse, then start them off indoors and then get them in there later on. But yes, and things like you can start potting up dahlias shortly from tubers. That's a really good idea to get going, and they will go out later on in the season. We have dahlias in at the moment in packets, and there's some beautiful varieties. I've really got into dahlias lately, and now I can't resist any of them anymore. So
My
yeah,
husband loves dahlias. Every year we just seem to get more and more dahlias.
no, they're irresistible. I didn't used to like them at all, and suddenly I just love them and can't keep away from them. So yeah, that's my latest thing. So yeah, little strawberry plants you can pot up and bring indoors, and they'll get going and then start flowering much earlier, so you can get an early crop of strawberries. But I think cleanliness is one of the main things. I definitely make sure I was ready for the growing season ahead, and then you can sort of just get to it then, rather than trying to sort around spaces and stuff and realising you haven't got half the stuff you needed. So yeah.
My father-in-law, my late father-in-law, used to put something in the greenhouse that smoked it. Is that necessary?
I don't use those, and in actual fact, if you're overwintering plants in a greenhouse, you can't actually use the smoke bombs. You have to take all the plants out and shut the door, and so you've got to find room for the plants somewhere else. As long as you're giving it a good clean with the disinfectant, you should be fine. The smoke bombs, they don't contain what they used to either. They're not so strong as they used to be, basically. They've taken out anything that actually really did the job properly. I mean, they're getting in the crevices, but you don't have to use them. No, you don't.
Okay. And what about the lawn? What can people be doing with the lawn?
It's almost time to start doing the lawn. It's still a little bit too early. Here we're aiming to probably mow the grass in the next sort of week to a fortnight, depending on what the weather does. And as the weather warms up, we will apply a weed and feed to give it a boost. And we will oversow any areas that are a little bit thin where they've had a lot of footfall over the winter months.
Okay.
I had to admit to mowing my lawn last week.
Oh, did you?
On the highest, you do have to start with the high, because otherwise you'll just scalp it. If it does get cold and frosty, you should be walking on it in the frost. But I just couldn't resist. My
husband did hours on the high one, but he couldn't. Yeah, the same. He couldn't. He's a gardener, and he could not resist doing hours. And it does.
And actually, edging it makes a massive difference this time. You've re-edged it, and it just cleans everything up, and it just makes everything really lovely.
It does sharpen it up.
Definitely. Yeah. So
he did it on the higher one, and did the edges, and it does. And then you really feel like spring is coming, and the garden's getting ready for you.
We've got 2 young dogs, and they use the garden as a racetrack. So you've got these sort of like skid marks where they run and then they turn. So that will have to be oversown.
I've got a question. Well, partly Jane and partly myself, and that is about the soil. Is the soil in the Taunton area all sort of like, does it tend to be all the same, sort of like acidic, alkaline? Is it, or can it still vary in area to area around Taunton?
It can vary. Majority of sort of the Taunton area is a sort of slightly on the alkaline side, so hence you can't grow rhododendrons, azaleas. It's more sort of like on the neutral side, but you will find pockets sort of like coming down from Hestercombe. I know there's sort of like a pocket there that is quite acid, so you can grow rhododendrons and azaleas, but as a general rule of thumb, it's more sort of neutral.
Okay. And you have the test kits, don't you? What
you need to do is look at the border and then take technically it should be 25 samples, but take a number of samples across the border in a W shape, mix that soil all together, and then test that. That gives you a much more accurate reading.
Right, okay. Thank you. Jane is also asking, Jane's been in her house for a couple of years, and it's a reasonably new development. So I think she's looking to be a real good gardener here. Succession planting for continuous colour in the garden. So do you start that now, or is it a case like earlier on you said come back? So get things now and then come back in the summer, and you'll have those in, and then come back in the winter, and that's how you end up with good succession planting in your garden and colour. Keep coming back.
Some things like the majority of our shrubs say we would stock almost 12 months of the year. So if you do a little bit of research or let us give you some help, we can actually plan for the shrubs. But when you get to things like perennials, we have a starter selection at the moment, but we will carry them right the way through the year of what's looking good. So hence we don't have everything all in one go. But like Jane said, you can also plan by planting summer flowering bulbs and dahlias and start your bedding off now to give you that sort of succession. But if you're a lazy gardener, just come in once a fortnight, spend a couple of £100, and the garden will look fantastic.
I know you probably asked a lot of this at the moment, and certainly we planted a wildflower area last year, and it looked amazing. Is that how you would concentrate if you want to attract bees and butterflies? I know we've also got other plants. We've got buddleia here, that attract bees and butterflies. What else would attract the bees and butterflies? It's a very sort of like popular thing to be doing at the minute.
Well, a lot of the bulbs do, and another favourite of mine, the hellebore. I mean, the bees were literally buzzing around those last week, like mad. Absolutely love the early flowers. So any of the early flowers are really good for bees and other beneficial insects, because it's there's not much about for them this time of year, and they offer a really important source of food for them. So anything that is flowering now, the primroses will start soon. All the little flowering spring bulbs are excellent for pollinators and for a food source for those. And the blossoms, of course, will be starting soon. So yeah, there's loads of things. And if you're thinking successionally wise, if you plant up things like herbaceous plants, if you go for single flowers rather than the big blousy double flowers, it's much easier for the insects to get into the food source, the nectar in the middle, when they can actually see their food source. The daisy flowers, for instance, the cernetti would be a good idea.
Yeah,
so yeah, plenty of open flowers for them to get into. But yeah, bulbs are an excellent idea.
And we also offer some sort of boxes of seeds, which are very good for somebody as a sort of a starter, where you just literally will prepare the ground, throw this seed down, and then you get a real sort of selection of nice annuals that will be really good as pollinators.
Yeah.
Lovely.
Just wildflowers, plenty of cultivated will encourage them.
Talking of the birds, of the bees particularly, and that my colleague this morning shared something with me, and it was from Chris Packham, and he was saying that we shouldn't be cutting down like the some of like the dead leaves and stems until it's about 10 degrees, because you've got the little insects and bees that are actually asleep in there and they're still hibernating in there.
Yeah, a lot of hollow-leaved, hollow-stemmed plants will have hibernating insects. It is terribly tempting. I say I did clear my garden last week, but not perfectly. I've left a lot of it about because I do think that is true. A lot of insects will be, and also not even in the stems, also just in little piles of, that have been left out, little piles of leaves and things on the border. So yeah, it's best not to over tidy, and it's best not to over tidy in the autumn either. Leave seed heads on for birds and things like that. So yeah, don't be over tidy, but you have to go with the flow to a certain degree. You've got to, your style of garden will influence that to a degree. Yeah.
Lovely. Okay. Now I've got right. That's the questions. That's the questions I had. Right. I'm going to go down the comments now. Right back up to the comments, and no, it's fine. There's a lot of people said happy birthday, and happy birthday, Jane. I've said happy birthday.
We've got the guys coming in to help give her the bumps.
It's a good job there's lockdown, isn't there?
I hope they're strong.
Hannah's got a couple of questions, and the one that she posted up first is, how does she best get her brambles under control? They are thugs in her garden.
Well, I mean, you can use a weed killer. You need a fairly strong weed killer like SBK. However, I mean, actually, I get brambles in my garden. I've got native hedging either side, and to be honest, I literally just dig them up as often as I can. And actually, if you can get most of the root out, they don't tend to come back from the, if you can pull them up. The thing about brambles is that every time a piece of bramble touches the ground, it has the ability to grow roots from that where it touches the ground. So if you keep them upright and short, they won't actually spread particularly. So you've just really got to make sure they don't arch over and regrow, because they can just keep rooting along like that, and then you'll end up with loads of them. But yeah, they are hard, but you can kill them with weed killer, but I just don't go down that route anymore.
No.
So it's just
unless you've got a huge area which is solid brambles and you can't do anything with it, it's much better, like you said, just to dig them out individually. By the time you've gone and mixed up the chemical, you could have stuck a fork under it and pulled it out.
Yeah. If you're clearing a big area, you might want to go down that route of weed killer just to get it sorted, and then you can go. But yeah, I don't find them a huge problem, brambles.
Okay.
Digging them up.
A garden full of them.
Yeah, just keep on at it, I'm afraid.
It's more, I suppose it's more difficult when they're intertwined with other things, but then you've got the problem with the weed killer anyway, because you can't get a weed killer that says, I only like killing brambles.
No.
Yeah. Kat asked me, and I forgot this question, I wrote it down yesterday. Kat has got, and that's one of my colleagues, she lives out at Wivliscombe, Milverton. Kat has got a small garden and she'd like to know what dwarf fruit trees could she put along a fence? And she doesn't mind what fruit trees they are.
And we've got a good selection of dwarf apples. Choose one that's on a small rootstock, something like an M27, which will only get to about sort of 6-7 feet tall. Can even be grown in something like a half oak barrel. Choose a self-fertile variety, something like self-fertile Cox. But there's lots of different ones. Scrumptious is a new variety, which is very popular.
Yeah, or maybe fan trained. You could go fan trained. It would certainly look very pretty if it was up against the fence.
That's apple, is it?
No, there's loads of different fan trained fruits. You could go for something like a plum would be nice. A pear would look particularly attractive.
Cherries are always popular as well.
And the good thing about fan training a cherry is you can net it quite easily, so you get the fruit and not the birds.
And choose a fruit you like to eat. That's a major thing.
Yeah, absolutely. Talking of cherries, okay, I have a cherry tree now, and for 3 years running, we have netted it, and the birds have found a way to get in. How can I go? So the first year, we had literally just a couple of cherries. So that was fine. The second year, we had 3 cherries, and this was when my father-in-law was alive. So we had 1 each. And last year, we had an abundance of cherries, and we were really excited. And what the birds found they could do is if they pressed down on the net hard enough, they just sit on the net and pull the cherries through.
Well, I think they deserve the cherries, don't they? They do hard work.
The thing about birds and cherries is a bit like with strawberries. You have to net them well in advance for a start, and they will literally come down and take them all in one go. Sort of pick at them. They'll come and take the whole lot.
Yeah.
You need I would say use some environmental mesh rather than bigger.
Okay.
Net with a bigger hole, basically, because if it's only for a week or two, it won't hurt the plant. And just before they ripen, put that on instead.
Okay. You have that, do you?
Yes, absolutely. Environmental mesh. It's good for all sorts of things, keeping all sorts of insects off as well. So good for brassicas, anything like that.
Okay, we'll come and have a look, because I'd like to eat more than 1 cherry a year, really.
Or maybe just make a better frame. I mean, how big is it? Make a better framework before you start.
It was quite. It's on its. Well, this will be it's the 4th year. So, but it's getting bigger every year. So every year you have to start again because it's not
too big. You're not going to be able to net it anyway. So
no, it's getting quite tall. So we need to
cat round.
Yeah. Right. Let's see what else we've got here. Hannah's looked up cernetti on your website, so she's put me the link on there. That's great. Thank you very much.
They're really vibrant colours. They're a lovely, lovely plant this time of year.
I'm going to have a look. Chris Scotting has put, you can buy Seed of Hope, CIC wildflower seeds there, and support a local non-profit helping people with mental health problems. Thanks, Andrew and team. So what is that? Is that something you do? You've got, there we go. Hannah's just popped that onto the screen there.
Aren't they the ones we've got at the tills, aren't they?
Yeah, I think they are. Yes, we sell them.
Right.
Yeah.
So they're a good line just as you go through.
Okay, lovely. And then Hannah also mentioned we've got you can put layered bulbs in your pots throughout the summer and the autumn. And actually, we've done that through the winter. So we've had little pansies, and now the daffodils have come through those pansies, and we've got the tulips coming up to follow. So, and they're just outside. I'm just looking up now, just outside the patio door, and it's just lovely to have them just outside where you can see them and watch them all come up one at a time.
Layering is a really good way. They call it lasagna planting. You plant the layers like a lasagna, so you'd obviously put the bigger stuff nearer the bottom and things like crocus nearer the top. This is totally the wrong time of year to be talking really about things like that, because obviously you've put those in the autumn. I had a man ask me if we had any daffodil bulbs yesterday because they're out in the garden.
Yeah.
But of course, you've got to think a few months in advance. So we have the spring flowering bulbs in stock coming in August. So
We have got spring flowering bulbs in pots, but
yeah,
they're a convenience product. It is a much more expensive way of doing it. So if you're only looking for a few to fill in some holes, it's a good way of doing it. But if you're looking for volume, you really need to come in the sort of first week of September, right the way through September. We have a huge array of bulbs.
Yeah, we did it early. Okay, let's carry on down. Bear with me. Somebody has put here that there's an app that you can photograph a plant and it automatically tells you what that plant is.
That's not very useful, to be honest.
No, I know my husband's used that. Sometimes it works and sometimes it doesn't.
Totally lead people down the wrong path sometimes.
We've got a few members of staff that have done it thinking it'd be helpful.
Yeah.
And they come over and say, "Oh, this plant's labelled wrong." And I'm like, "No, that isn't labelled wrong. That app's not working correctly."
Yeah, I mean, those apps are only as good as the information someone's fed into them in the first place. You know, there's so many different varieties of things for a start. They're quite a useful tool. They'll be good on some things and not very good at all on others. A bit side by side, it's I'd say hit and miss. But yeah, I mean, all these things improve all the time. So down the line, I'm sure there'll be a really useful tool for people.
Just photograph and bring it into you, and that's how people.
Absolutely. Just
photograph and a little piece of it is always helpful.
Yes.
As long as it's okay.
Catherine Holloway has said she loves the garden and the well-being it gives, and I think we've all found that. And asked about the viburnum. Is that the one with tall yellow flowers?
No.
Right, there you go.
I can't think of a viburnum with yellow flowers. Can you?
No.
No, viburnums tend to be more sort of whites and sort of creams.
And they're always in a little cluster, really, as well.
Right.
There's lots of different viburnums. It's a fabulous shrub to have in the garden, certainly.
One of the best ones, I suppose, is the one we call the snowball tree, Viburnum opulus. When that comes to flower, amount of people that come in and describe it to us and say, they've been driving around and seen it. What is it? So that's Viburnum opulus sterile.
Okay. Yeah, she's just written, "Oh yes, I think I know it." And I've got, because we're just coming up to time, so I'm just going to have a look. I keep cutting mine. Hannah's put wild hedgerows with arching stems. I keep with the cutting back and pulling out. Oh, right. This is Hannah and her balls. She's got a stony old farmland and it makes it really hard to dig out.
Yeah.
Best of luck with that. And there's a comment here about compost, about, putting your compost in. Is there, again, in this particular area, can you put does the compost you put in, is that dependable on what you're going to plant, or because there's so many different types of compost, how would you choose which one you were going to put in?
Well,
I suppose it depends whether you're talking about compost that you've made yourself or bags of compost.
Yeah, bags of compost.
If you're talking about bags of compost, you really need to work out what you're going to put in there. So, we do sort of general compost, which is great for most things. And then we do specialist compost, things that are particularly good, like the ericaceous range, which is particularly aimed at rhododendrons, azaleas. Then we do a range that's particularly good for vegetable plants. So therefore, it will have the correct nutrients and the right sort of consistency and drainage properties for vegetables. And then if you're looking for sort of what we call permanent planting in pots, which are shrubs and perennials, you tend to use the John Innings compost, which is a loam-based, and it's got a bit more substance to it.
If you're talking about digging quantities into the soil, things like ericaceous compost, A, it would be very expensive to try and dig loads in, and B, you can't actually change the nature of your soil that easily. A few bags of compost are not going to change soil permanently. You can obviously, if you're planting into pots, you can definitely control what you're planting into. Into the ground, you cannot change soil that easily from alkaline to acid without a huge amount of additions to the soil, and it's just not worth it. If you're talking about generally trying to improve the soil, I'm trying to get hold of well-rotted manure. We do a farmyard manure here in a bag. Make your own compost. Everybody should be trying to make their own compost. It's very easy. You just stack it up in one corner and I mean, there is more to it than that, but generally most people would be able to make compost. And so, yeah, in pots, you can control it. In the ground, if you're just trying to get it improved, I would use something like farmyard manure or something like 6X, which is another excellent one.
Okay, thank you. Right, that's come to an end, really. I think I could just keep going on. Kat has said thank you very much for the advice on her fruit trees. I know she's very keen to do that. And so I'm going to say goodbye to everybody. What I do want to do is just remind everybody about a brilliant session that's also going to happen tomorrow. And that is the South Somerset agent. One of the South Somerset agents is going to be talking live and baking live with Bryony May, who was on the Great British Bake Off. So if you want a cooking session and to see how she does her baking and have a bit of fun, join at 11 o'clock tomorrow. And join Bryony May and our agent from South Somerset tomorrow. She will look forward to seeing you then. And I've really enjoyed today. Thank you so much, Andrew and Jane, for joining us. And we'll be back in the summer when you're all fully open and you can tell us all about what is there for the summer. And also by then we'll be getting ready for the autumn. So that'll be a really good thing. And you'll be getting all of your Christmas stock in by then as well, and all your lovely Christmas decorations.
It just happens like that.
Yeah.
Well, thank you for having us.
Thank you very much.
Thank you for watching, everybody. Please share this around.
Bye.